Guys, today's video is actually inspired from a comment on one of my Facebook threads. My guy asked the question, if I had only one bait to use all year long in any situation, what would that bait be? And today I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on what that bait is and why I picked it. So here it is, my favorite bait, the bait that I would use anytime, anywhere, any place, any situation. If I could only use one bait, is really simple. It would be the soft plastic stick bait. The reason I like the soft plastic stick bait is I can use it in so many different situations and rig it so many different ways, particular to whatever the situation may be. I can use it, I can Texas rig it. That allows me to fish it over grass. I can fish it deep, fish it on ledges. I can use it to sight fish with. Actually, when I'm sight fishing in the springtime, one of my go-tos is just a straight up, just a Texas rig zinker on like 15-pound fluorocarbon. That's like my go-to. That's what I start off with. You can drop shot stick bait. That's what I use at Champlain a lot this year. You can use it weightless, Texas weightless, nail weighted. I use it on schooling fish a lot. A lot of times when the schooling fish are real finicky and they're biting and feeding on really small shad, there's just something about this soft plastic stick bait just fluttering down through the school that can trigger a bite for you. So there's just a lot of different scenarios and situations that I can use it in. So here we go. We'll start. There's exactly 5 different rigs, different setups that I use on my soft plastic stick baits. And I'll start here with the Texas rig. Just the plain old Texas rig, 1/4 ounce sinker, 5/0 offset hook. Just simple as it gets. Old school 15-pound test. You can use mono fluorocarbon, 7'3" bait caster with a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio rod. That's my setup that I'll use that for sight fishing. If you're fishing like a grass line, just going down through there, casting it over grass line. I use the same setup to flip when I'm in the rivers and flipping laydowns and docks. I'll use it in all those different scenarios. Just a straight up Texas rig. You guys are probably pretty familiar with what a Texas rig is. Just a bullet sinker over the top of a hook, whether it's a straight shank hook, offset, whatever you like to use. Just a hunk of plastic on there. That's all a Texas rig is. I can cast it, flip it, just use it in a lot of different scenarios. So that's where we'll start. That's one of the ways that I rig it, is that way. The second way that we'll go over is a drop shot. I drop shot a soft plastic stick bait a lot. I use this a lot of smallmouth. This is a 5-inch zinker. Zinker Z here is sprayed grass. You can see I got a 1/0 drop shot hook on there, just hooked in the middle. I typically wacky rig the drop shot when I use a stick bait on a drop shot. I'll typically use it wacky style. You can use it straight up with a nose hook or whatever, but I just like the wacky rig. There's a couple different sizes that I like to use. I'll use a 5-inch. Is probably the most versatile size. I'll also use a 4-inch as well. A 4-inch on a drop shot is what I use predominantly. A 4-inch bait allows the drop shot to sink a little bit faster, so I can hurry up and get it down to the bottom. And a 4-inch is about as small as I like to go when I'm wacky rigging, because you need that length to get the bait to undulate a little bit. The shorter the bait is, the less action you're going to have on it. Doesn't mean that's a bad thing, because the bait has a lot less action with a shorter piece of plastic. But I think if you use a 4 or 5-inch, it gives you just a perfect undulation when you go to shake the rod tip when you're using a drop shot. The third variation is just a weightless Texas style. We're going to rig the plastic just like how I would when I'm Texas rigging with a weight, but it's just going to be weightless with no weight. This is just a 5-inch Zinker Z with in Carpentruce color. This is probably 10-pound test on a spinning rod, 10-pound test with 10-pound test braid. This application is pretty versatile as well. I can use this for sight fishing. I can use it to fish over grass lines. I use this setup in Florida a lot. When you go to Florida or fish any type of aquatic vegetation, you use a weightless stick bait a lot. So you can use it in those different scenarios. It's really great in schooling fish as well. Don't forget, a lot of times we have a tendency to use only shad imitators when fish are schooling, but don't forget your drop shot setups and your weightless soft plastics when you're fishing for schooling fish. A lot of times those finicky schooling fish, when they won't bite anything else, they'll hit a weightless plastic bait. I don't know what it is. It's just something about it really being irritable with it. It's just staying in place so often. So the fourth setup that I like to use is just a straight up wacky rig. I've caught so many fish on a wacky rig. It's probably a setup that I use more than I use a shaky head. I almost never use a shaky head anymore. I use a wacky rig predominantly now. And what I like to use this is a 5-inch Fatty Z from Z-Man Fishing Products. You can see that it's a stick bait, but it has a little bit different profile. It has a stick bait profile, and then it comes to a little bit more of a restricted, slender tail back here at the back. And that just gives that bait a little bit more action. It has a flat bottom on it. I think it's a bait that really goes under the radar. I've really started to use it a lot. You can notice on my wacky rig, I actually hook the bait not in the dead center, but a little bit to the front. And what that does is just change the sink rate on it, because you put the hook on it. The hook is not only what you use to hook the fish with, but it's also a weighting apparatus as well. So that, depending on what size hook you use, that's going to change the sink rate of your bait. So that's something I don't think a lot of guys think about when they're using their hooks, when they're making their choice on their hooks or their weightless stick baits. Is the size of your hook is going to change your sink rate. This is just a 1/0 drop shot hook here, and I hook it right in the middle of the egg side on that Fatty Z. And what that does is let that Fatty Z sink head first a little bit. And depending on how you rig it, if you put a nail weight in the nose of this bait, what happens is when that bait's on the bottom and you pull it in the center, that tail just stands right up and that nose just stays right down on the bottom. It gives the fish a little bit different profile than you see just a straight up wacky rig. But that's probably the setup I use more than any when I'm going to finesse presentation, or if I'm just wanting to downsize any kind of soft plastic. It's just a straight up wacky rig, Fatty Z on the #1 drop shot hook. This one's on bait casting equipment. I was just using it for a little bit heavier duty situation that I was in a couple weeks ago. But I'll typically use it on spinning gear, 10-pound test braid, 8 to 10 pound test fluorocarbon, and that's just my go-to setup there. And the last, but not least, I want to introduce you guys, if you haven't already been introduced, to the Ned rig. All the soft plastics that are associated with the Ned rig are spin-offs of the stick bait, soft plastic stick baits. And a Ned rig, the basis of it is really just a portion of a stick bait. Now, Z-Man Fishing Products, they make a bait actually designed just for the shroom's head, the finesse shroom's head. And this is called a TRD. I use a hula stick a lot as well. You've seen in some of my other videos. But this bait is still just a soft plastic stick bait. It's a 3-inch piece of soft plastic stick bait. But the thing that's most important about using the TRD with your Ned rig is the elastic formula floats. And the soft content in the TRD is a lot less than in the Zinkers or the Fatty Z. So this soft plastic sinks and or floats. I'm sorry. This soft plastic floats. So when that Ned rig hits the bottom, you have the tail come up and undulate. The more you use this bait, the more fish you catch on it, the softer and more pliable that plastic gets, and it just has more action to it. So this is the Ned rig. This is a 1/20th ounce shroom's head. You see they come in a couple different colors. I use the red color a lot. That's a TRD, a 3-inch TRD. I also use the hula stick a good bit as well. But this is just a fantastic bait to catch fish in just about any situation. Is to use just a 1/20th ounce, a TRD, exposed hook. You can see the hook is exposed on this particular piece of plastic. There is, it's not Texas rigged or anything, but that's such a light wire hook that if you use 8 or 10 pound test line, you get hung up, you usually can open that hook up and get it loose. But that's a setup that I've used a lot here recently, and I'm still learning the process and all the intricacies of the Ned rig, and it's a bait that I've been really impressed with. Just as I said with the Zinker Z, the TRD is an awesome bait. It comes in a lot of different colors, shad colors, crawfish colors. There's a lot of different baits that you can use with that TRD that can mimic a little shad. And one good thing to use it for is schooling fish as well. So if you're on those fish, especially in the fall, we're heading to that fall transition, there's a lot of small shad in the creeks. And those bass will feed on those little small shad, and they can be extremely tough to catch. If you use that little Ned rig with a 1/20th ounce, throw it down in those school of fish and just leave it alone, let it sink. That is an excellent bait to catch those finicky bass with, or school and feed on those small shad. As far as my colors go on my soft plastic stick baits, I stay pretty simple. I do get out of the pocket, as you notice on some of these baits, but I like to stay in the watermelons and green pumpkins. By far my favorite color is a green pumpkin with gold flake. Z-Man Fishing Products has a color called Canada Craw. It has this green pumpkin plastic, has black, gold, and just a hint of red flake in it. And that bait will get me through a lot of different situations. The reason I like that gold flake in it, gold can represent so many things. If you ever look at a brim, they always have a little bit of a gold tint to the belly. They can represent a perch. If I'm smallmouth fishing on some of the smallmouth fisheries up north, they have a lot of perch in them. And that gold just kind of throws the tinge to just like what the perch is. So I like that. That Canada Craw is probably my go-to. There's a color called Copper Truce that I've really grown to like. I don't like to get outside of the pocket that much, but this is one that that's kind of proven to be good. This has a green pumpkin back with gold flake, like a copper flake in it, but it also the back side of it is a chartreuse. So that's a real good color for smallmouth, but it's really, I've learned it's a really good color for largemouth as well. I don't really understand it, but I do know that chartreuse holds this color in just about any, holds this vibrancy in just about any color situation, watercolor situation. So Canada Craw, Copper Truce, and there's also a color that I like in a real clear water situation. It's called Sprayed Grass, which is sort of like a watermelon color with purple flake. That's a really good color as well. I use that a lot. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot of different colors. Z-Man Fishing Products has a whole plethora of different color combinations and flakes that you can use. But those are my go-to colors in just about every situation. There's some shad pattern colors that I like as well. The deal is one that I like really well. It can be used as in a forward situation like shad. It has a pearlescent body with a green pumpkin top on it. That's a really good color to use as well. But these are my go-tos. I like to stay with the green pumpkins, watermelons. They work day in, day out. And in those specific situations, I'll kind of vary out to some other colors like the Copper Truce and the deal, which is sort of a shad pattern color as well, plastics. Or really, those are my go-tos. If I could only have one or two baits, it would be one from this selection. I can fish a soft plastic stick bait in so many different situations all year long. That's why it's my go-to bait, and that's why if I could only have one bait, it would definitely be soft plastic stick bait.